So last December, I went to New Orleans, and I wasn't a huge fan of the city, but I did like the beignets at Cafe du Monde. And I took my sourdough starter with me. So today we're actually making beignets that are sourdough, and then having, obviously, some coffee and chicory with it. So to begin the process of making the beignets, we are going to brew up some St. John's wort tea. And this is not unusual beignets, but I like to add that extra flavor. And I feel like it adds a nice touch. So we're gonna add water to a pot, and then we're gonna heat it up until it's hot enough to brew tea. Since I get my St. John's wort as a loose leaf tea, I'm just gonna add it to one of these tea diffusers. All right, now that our water's hot, we're going to start brewing our tea. I just do this in a coffee mug. We want this to brew for 3 minutes. Now, while our tea is brewing, we're going to warm up some of our milk. And we just want this to 110 degrees because this is what we're going to use to bloom our yeast as well as the tea. So just warm this up a little bit. Okay, so our tea is done brewing, and so we'll pull it out. It's got a really nice color to it. It's kind of like a deep straw color. So we're gonna add it to our milk. And try not to spill it. And then we're going to temp read the milk. Okay, so it's reading just about at 95. So I'm gonna pop this on the stove and I'm gonna heat it up to 110. Okay, so it is in that 110 range. So I'm gonna bring this over here. And I'm going to add some sugar in here. This will also help boost the yeast. Now, this is a sourdough recipe, but I do use yeast just to boost it. Since in this recipe, instead of making a levain, I am using sourdough discard. And this yeast just guarantees that it blooms or rises correctly. But the sourdough helps condition the dough to be easier to digest. All right, now we're gonna let that sit for about maybe 3 minutes or until it starts foaming up. So for the dry ingredients, I am going to put them in a bowl of a stand mixer. Now this is optional. You do not have to use a stand mixer. I just have one, so I might as well use it so it doesn't just decorate the counter. So we're gonna go in with our flour, and then we're just gonna add salt to this. Pretty much all the other ingredients are gonna be wet, or at least in the wet ingredients. And then here's some salt. And all the ingredients are in the description, or the amounts. And that is ready for the wet ingredients when our yeast is done blooming. So now that the yeast has been bloomed, I'm going to add my sourdough to it. So we're just gonna mix that in there. It's gonna be a little bit kind of clumpy. It's not gonna dissolve entirely, but that's okay. All right, so I have some butter in this little pan, and so I'm gonna get this melting. We'll need that right after the dough starts to come together, just to kind of loosen it up and also enrich it. But then we're going to add an egg and 1 egg yolk to our yeast mixture. This will complete the wet mix. And then we're gonna pour it into the flour. There we go. So we're gonna pop this on the machine. All right, so here's our butter. It's nicely melted. And here's our dough. It's just kind of loosely coming together. So we're going to bring it together a little bit more and then start slowly pouring in the butter. So the consistency on the dough is a little bit clumpy. So we're going to just hand knead it until it reaches the right consistency. Usually if you have a rich dough like this, it doesn't stick too much because all the oil's in it. Maybe something like that, so it's all together. Has a little bit of, different textures through here, but I think it's fine. So I'm gonna move it to a bowl. All right, now with this, we need to cover it with some plastic wrap. That way it doesn't dry out and kind of creates a humid environment for the dough to expand in. Also, we're going to leave this out for like 2 hours, and that will help the yeast get started. And then we're gonna pop it in the fridge until tomorrow morning. So I would say around, 16 to 24 hours before you plan on cooking them, you prep the dough. So this is the dough that's been in the fridge. As you can see, it's risen a little bit, but it's not overly fluffy. I will say these French rolling pins are amazing. You don't have to use any bench flour, which prevents it from drying out, and it also doesn't add more like gluten that hasn't been fermented. So a knife will work, but I have this little gadget, so I'm gonna use it just to justify making it take up space in my cabinet. And what we really want here is we want these like straight edges, because these are gonna puff up really nicely. Here's the things I set up before frying just to be ready for when the beignets come out of the oil. So I have my cookie sheet with some paper towels down, and then a drying rack on top of it. And then I have a ton of powdered sugar right here. I won't use it all, but that way I can instantly put the powdered sugar on when the beignets come out of the oil. And then I have chopsticks, because I've found that instead of using a spider, using chopsticks to flip the beignets and pull them out is really helpful. And then we have our pan of hot oil that is now ready to fry in. All right, since our pan is small, I'm only gonna fry 2 at a time. But just kind of drop them in. Be gentle with them, because you don't want it to fry your hand as well as the dough. And then if they look like they stick to the sides, just like separate them from that. And they rise really quickly. So I can tell they're toasted on the bottom, so we're just going to give them a nice flip. Like that. All right, so I kind of flip this over to check the other side. It looks done, so I'm going to pull it out. Just kind of let that oil drip off and put it on the tray. And while these are still hot, we're going to dust them with our powdered sugar. So to pair our beignets, we're going to make some strong coffee, but this is Café du Monde's coffee and chicory. If you can't get this, either you're in a different country and they don't export it, you can just mix a really good coffee grounds and then some chicory in there. I don't know the exact ratio, so maybe play around with it, but I've done that before and it's really good. But since we have this and it's iconic, we're just going to open it. And there is our coffee and chicory. Okay, so I'm just gonna add some coffee grounds to some boiling water. And just pour yourself a cup of this. Now I suggest eating these hot. I would even eat them like right when they're coming off, once you put powdered sugar on them. But I wanted the very iconic pile of beignets. So these are a little bit cooler, but they're still delicious. And we're going to do what the traditional thing in New Orleans is, that you dunk your beignet in your coffee. It's so messy. But the inside is so fluffy. It's got a light chew to it. It's just so soft and pillowy. These are so good. Let's try the coffee by itself. Yep. It's very iconically bitter, but it doesn't have like those really acidic notes. Instead, it's very well-rounded, but has a very dark, deep flavor. So it's really good. I hope you can make this because this is just such a good treat to have. And yeah, I don't want to eat this all the time because obviously it's, pretty sweet, pretty dense. Or not dense, as in, it's just got a lot of oil to it, a lot of fat. But if you do have these every now and then, I think it's a great treat. So I hope you can make them. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I will hopefully see you next time.